Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Janal Puducherry, and I'm standing as a candidate in Pasir Ris, Punggol for the PAP, together with our colleagues here, led by SM2020, who's served you, the residents of Pasir Ris, Punggol, for many years. I've been in the team for the last 9 years as well. We're being joined by our new friends and our new colleagues. And beginning on my right, we have Mr. Sharil Taha. Then we also have joining us Mr. Desmond Tan and Miss Yo Wan Ling. We're doing this because we think that there are a number of issues that our residents have brought up. There are a number of issues that we feel are important, that are of concern to the residents of Pasir Ris Punggol GRC, whether as part of the campaign or which have been there nationally. And we think having this type of discussion will bring it to you and give you a chance to ask us questions. So it's going live on our Facebook pages, myself as well as SM2020 and all of our colleagues as well. So if you have questions and comments, please log in, ask us, and we'll try our best to answer some of them tonight. But maybe I begin by asking SM2020 what his sense of the campaign has gone so far. What are the key issues that we perhaps need to be talking about that have been brought to his attention? SM2020.
Well, this is my 7th general election. I've served you for 23 years here in Pasir Ris Punggol. Now, this election has been different from previous elections because we actually have a national crisis on hand. It's the most serious crisis I've seen in 40 years of public service. And we have to deal with it, and the world will be different at the end of this. At the same time, we know that there are issues which our residents are concerned about, their homes, their environment, education of the children, other things which we've heard. And we also need to plan for those things so that even though we have COVID-19, as we come through these, we should also address these other concerns of our residents.
Well, our 3 new friends and these new candidates that we have, you're quite different. You come from very different backgrounds, and people have gotten to know you. We've had the press interviews, we've uploaded some stuff on various Facebook pages, social media pages, and people know about where you've come from. So Sharil, you've had a significant private sector experience. Does that sort of affect how people ask you questions or what concerns they bring to you?
Yeah, so it definitely does. My background in the private sector, and especially from an industry which is so impacted by COVID-19, I mean, from the aerospace industry. So when people come up to me, when they know that I'm in the aerospace industry, just like a lot of our residents here in Pasir Ris Punggol, whether it's the aerospace industry or in the airline industry or even downstream industries like the exhibition industry that comes with the tourism. So a lot of the questions that have been fielded to me, have been asked to me, is about jobs and the impact of COVID-19 on the industry and my forecast of where the industry is at. I think if you build the layers of the questions, it goes down to job security, about jobs and job security. I think that's the key questions the residents have been asking me.
Excellent. Okay, and they know that you're coming in for the private sector experience. So that's something that they are interested in.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So maybe I turn next to Desmond. Desmond, of course, has had many years in public service. And people know this, Desmond. They clearly, it's been out there in the news.
Yeah.
Does it influence what they bring to you?
Yes, I think in general they kind of know my background, being in the public service. So I would say the main line of questioning or feedback that I receive is about actually how and where can they get help? Where can the residents, especially during this COVID situation, I would broadly categorize into two main areas. One is actually financial assistance help. I think many of our residents as well as Singaporeans are affected by this. The other one is also, like what Shara mentioned, is actually related to businesses, employment, and jobs. Right? I think many of our residents also either have lost a job or have their income significantly affected. So they are asking us to, hey, where can we get help from? I think these are the 2 main categories so far.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now I turn to Wan Ling. Wan Ling, you've had a varied type of career, right? You have spent some time in the public sector,
yes,
but then you've also gone out into the private sector with your own business.
That's right.
So how does that influence what people bring to you? And actually also, how does it influence what you say to them?
Well, actually, I've been volunteering here in Punggol for quite some time already. And I think people know about my background, which is actually running a social enterprise and caregiving. So a lot of the questions that people ask me is really about caregiving, about elderly issues. And also at the same time, I would say that it's quite interesting. People know that I'm dealing with a startup. And so there are quite a number of questions about what is it like, to start up a startup, and also at the same time, what is it like to sustain a startup?
Excellent.
Yeah.
So a wide variety of issues that various residents have been bringing to you over the last period of time that you've been volunteering, you've been engaging them on the ground. But I mean, my sense is that there are other things out there, right?
Yeah.
We've been speaking to residents, they've been emailing us, MPS, Facebook, and there's a whole bunch of other things. SM, are there other things that you think are particularly relevant at this period of time that perhaps we might spend some time talking about today?
Well, one of the issues that has been raised to me by young people actually has been sustainability and environment. And I think it's because quite a number of our residents like the greenery that we have here, and quite a lot of young residents are actually quite keen on sustainability as an issue.
Okay.
So that was one subject.
Okay. When you say sustainability, do you think it's a sort of a biodiversity, or does it also include climate change? We've had a couple of questions online already about climate change.
That's right. I think some of them have been about climate change and what Singapore is doing and what Pasir Ris is doing and how it's going. I mean, how climate change will affect us and the lives that we lead.
Okay. What about you guys? I mean, I sort of suggested that perhaps your background influenced what subjects were brought to the table, and you got a few suggestions there. Are there other things that you think are of great relevance to our residents of Pasir Ris?
Actually, I do get quite a number of feedback and suggestions even on how we can improve the town. Right. So whether it's Pasir Ris or Punggol, everywhere I go, I am very appreciative to hear the suggestions. In fact, many of them have ideas how this town can be improved, and also about the future plans. Right? So that's something that I think will always concern our residents because they've been living here for a long time, and they will really want to see, how to make this a better place for themselves and their families.
It's a very important part of how they think about their hope and future, right? Okay. Okay. What else?
And for me, I've had a few questions on, in fact, from the youth. I've met a few, on the walks, I've met a few of the interns that's been serving in my organization also. And they're concerned about how do they get jobs after this, or the job market as they are fresh graduates coming out from universities or polytechnics or ITEs. So quite a lot of concerns from the youth also on what are the opportunities out there and what should they be looking at.
Okay.
Yeah. And I guess because I'm a girl, I'm a female, so I get quite a number of ladies coming to talk to me about work-life balance. What is it like, to raise a family here in Punggol and Pasir Ris as well. So I think that is also something that's of relevance. And I think, a lot of them got it during the work from home period. Where they had to balance family with work.
Well, we have a lot of young families in Punggol as well, and with new BTOs coming up in Pasir Ris, we also have sort of a re-injection of young families. So that's a whole set of issues also. Preschool education, child minding, child caring. That's a whole issue. I know we've done a lot in the last 5 years to provide more places for preschool care, but I think that is a continuing issue that young parents want. They want the best for their kids.
So that those were plans that were there before everything changed with COVID-19. Sort of at the moment, we're in a little bit of a state of flux, right? We don't have a sense that we've returned back to normal operations.
So I'm not even sure we will ever go back to things as they were, because there's a phase change.
But some of that work has to continue.
Yes.
Some of that work has to continue. There are new issues on the table associated with the COVID-19 crisis. Some of them are related to the jobs and financial support that we've talked about, for example. But how will we get the economy going, and how will we look at the sort of the big picture for Singapore? Not just for Pasir Ris Punggol residents. I mean, that's also a concern?
Yes, I would say so, because I think some of the questions that have been directed at Shariel, for example. I mean, what will the future economy and future of jobs look like? I mean, there are so many people who, previously may not have been on the net ordering food, ordering items, and were going to the shops, but they're doing it now. They're using digital forms of shopping, ordering things and payment. And I think that's going to change the way that each of us sort of interact with our needs, shopping and other things. It's going to change, the retail space in Singapore, tourism, transport. I think all those things will be impacted.
Okay. So we've sort of been talking for about 10 minutes. We've got a list of issues now that we perhaps can think about and have a bit of a deeper discussion. At the same time, we've had a number of questions coming in online and on a variety of pages. I think you all also have some on your own pages, and let me know if there's other things you'd like to add. But I just maybe bring a couple of the questions that our residents have written about, which I thought we might find interesting. Someone's asked if I'm taking over from Mr. Zainal Sapari in Pasir Ris. And I know that in my first term, people confused Janil and Zainal, and but maybe actually one of the things we should talk about is how we will work as a team.
Yes,
Where we will go. I think it was Frankie. Frankie, thank you for your question. We will find some way to answer it tonight. It's a good question. There's another question which I think is important. I think Marina has brought up the issue of assistance for fresh graduates and the security that they might have for jobs. I think very, very real. You're in the middle of your education and you wonder where you're going to go. So a wide variety. There was a question about our education system as well. What are our plans? So perhaps we can spend a quick discussion about what it is we're going to focus on today. If I can maybe sort of give some suggestions on the basis of what we talked about already. COVID-19 going forward, I think that addresses many of these issues. One of the big issues for that will be how we help people get the right kind of jobs. So we talked a bit about that and the support for jobs and industry going forward. I think some of the issues around seniors that brought about one thing I think they're quite important. There's a wide variety of issues about seniors, but aging has been something that we've talked about for some time in Singapore. There are many different aspects. Which do you think we should focus on for the seniors?
I actually think it's digitalization.
Okay.
It's kind of important because a lot of the comments that were brought back to me during the whole entire circuit breaker phase one period was about loneliness.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I think it's important to get connected.
And I must say that I also got some feedback. Some of the seniors, because of COVID and because some of the social management measures that are in place, they want to be able to keep up. Just to even to do safe entry, how to do e-payments. I think these are important. These are important things that and skill sets that our seniors will need some help with.
Yeah. Yep. So we'll go with COVID-19, the jobs and financial support coming out of COVID-19. We'll talk a little bit about seniors and digitalization, maybe. Then we had a number of things. I think, Cheryl, you brought up about youth, SM, about education and some of the plans that we'd had before. I think maybe that's another fourth topic now that we had to cover, youth, or maybe youth as a fourth topic, and then education in general as a fifth topic, because education is also about lifelong learning and some of our plans on Skills Future. And then there was a whole bunch of things around the greenery, the plans for Pasir Ris Punggol. That's about 5 or 6 topics. I think we better get on with it. And then if we have time, perhaps we'll do a bit more. Yes. We'll see how long we can go. So maybe we'd like to begin with COVID-19.
Yes.
This has been the defining thing that is on everybody's mind. The circuit breaker, the home-based learning, the work from home, the mask wearing. And now we are in the midst of this election, which is unlike any other that I suspect you have had an experience of, SM, certainly not the other two that I have. Where are we going from here? So perhaps maybe I'll begin with SMTO. Give us a sense of what you think the direction is for Singapore and how that's relevant down to Pasir Ris Punggol. And then we maybe talk a bit about jobs.
In the COVID-19
in the COVID-19 context.
Well, one of the things that has really impacted us is that, as Cheryl has said, many of our people living in Pasir Ris are in industries which are related to COVID-19 and been impacted by that. So this is one of the things which we need to recognize. And so that's important. And so the measures that we have, the support measures, which help companies through the temporary phase until they come back to normal, I think that's important. To help the workers in those industries come through this, that's important. And also how to restructure jobs, which is what Cheryl was talking about. Because some of those jobs and the industries may change quite permanently. And so that's a whole very important aspect of it.
Yeah. We can look at this from the perspective of the jobs, and we can also look at it from the perspective of the industry. And there's also a third perspective about the national capability. And I think that's been talked about at some at some various forum as well. But I think perhaps of interest to our residents is their jobs, and I think
Yes.
that's going to be a key issue really. So perhaps maybe we could focus a little bit more on that. And Cheryl, you wanted to talk about restructuring of jobs, and you had some comments about that.
Yeah.
And maybe we can talk about that and the financial support. And Desmond, you wanted to say a few things about jobs, perhaps.
Maybe I'll start off by saying that I do believe that COVID has changed the way we work, we live, and how we interact with each other. Right? So of course it is a health pandemic, but we know that the impact is going beyond healthcare. I think one of the most immediate impact it has on our people is the financial impact. People, whether they lose their income or they have a reduced income or even losing their job at the worst case. So that has very significant implications on our people. And of course, over the last 3 months, the government has rolled out quite a number of financial support, right? We know about temporary relief fund, we know about COVID support grant, we have the solidarity payment, we have the SIRS, and of course, we have the job support scheme. These are the 5 main ones. I think it is really, and as I was speaking to many of the residents, this has really helped them to tide through this critical period. But then the question still remains going forward, right? So this helped me to tide through, to keep my jobs, to keep my income to some extent. It may be reduced, but at least it helped. But going forward, I think what other support can we get? So I think I would like to mention 2 categories. One is actually at the national level. The national level, there's of course a National Job Council, and they have rolled out several initiatives, and I can quickly run through 3 of them. The first one is about job opportunities, right? So they're going to create up to 40,000 jobs for undergraduates, for mid-careerists, and so on, as well as to create career conversion program. So that's also very important, especially for those in mid-careers, right? So the second category is traineeship opportunity, right? So that has to do with they're going to create up to 21,000 traineeship for undergrad as well as a mid-career. And third is actually about skills upgrading. Of course, the government is committed to do it, to allow SG United skills upgrading program to be rolled out across the whole country. And finally, there will be other enhancements, enhanced hiring incentives and so on, as well as skills future credit. So broadly, these are the initiatives at the national level is rolled out. Now, actually, the question is how do we implement this effectively to the residents of Pasir Ris Punggol? And here I want to also highlight a few initiatives besides effectively rolling them out, implementing for our residents. Within Pasir Ris Punggol, actually we already have a project success that has been rolled out since 2004. And they have helped thousands of Pasir Ris Punggol's residents to help to job match their skill sets to employment opportunities within the area and the national level. So that's something that we want to continue to step it up, continue to implement it for our residents in Pasir Ris as well as Punggol. The other one, actually, they're going to set up actually job and career centers, and that's coming up in our areas in Pasir Ris and Punggol. Today is at Sengkang CC, but going forward they're going to set it up in Pasir Ris and Punggol. So that's good news for our residents because help is coming closer to you. You can just walk into the community club. You have career counselors who will help you to look at your skill sets and look at the opportunities and look at the training that you need. So I think these are 2 very exciting things that is available. And the third one for Pasir Ris Punggol residents is a career development program by the Northeast CDC. So the Northeast CDC has also many initiatives to provide resources and training as well as opportunity for our residents as well. I think these are the 3 things for the residents of Pasir Ris Punggol. It's something that we can look forward to. They were committed to help you to transit, whether to maintain your job or to transit to a new one.
Maybe I can jump in here and say a little bit about, add a little to what Desmond said about implementation. I mean, that's key. I mean, already we have seen during this very intense period of trying to put all these programs in and deliver them, there have been 1 or 2 little glitches. I mean, which I understand, frustration of some of our residents that they apply for things, it takes a bit longer. They apply, they didn't get it. There are things like that which we will work through. But these are very new schemes. But one of the key attributes that we have in Singapore is our tripartite working relationship between government, the unions, and employers. I mean, we're all on the same side, which is very important because in many countries they're all on opposite sides and they work, against each other, and you can't get things done. Whereas in Singapore, we're all on the same side trying to get things done. And our former colleague Chi Meng, with his NTUC now, SecGen, And he's working very, very hard to try and get the jobs going, the upskilling of jobs, working with the companies. And that's a critical part of what NTUC and Chimeng is doing right now for our workers.
Absolutely, SM. And you know, SM, if I may just build on that point, I've often found that when I've had to explain how we're able to get things done in Singapore in a number of areas to my counterparts overseas, I often end up explaining through the analogy of the unions and NTUC, because when the rest of the world thinks of unions, they think of something very, very different.
Yeah.
And I think one of the great examples in this crisis is if you look at what's happening to self-employed persons and the fact that our labor movement has actively and effectively stepped up to participate
Yes.
in
Yeah.
looking after self-employed persons.
Yeah.
Very few places in the world where that's possible, but our unionists have done that. So I thought I just want to give a big shout out that we can move in this way on things like self-employed persons and now the interventions that we're doing around
Yes.
COVID-19 because of that type of labor movement and the relationship we have with them.
Well, admittedly, you know, the organization of self-employed persons and the way to deliver assistance to them, there have been a few glitches.
There have
because
been a glitches.
They've never been, you know, nobody has actually looked at them as a group before.
That's right.
And it's really very important that the unions have stepped up and said, look, I want to help them. You know, that it's beyond COVID-19. There are issues like, is their welfare being taken care of?
Yeah.
Yes.
Are they getting medical benefits? How do they take care of themselves medically? Things like insurance if they face certain risks and so on. And if they have certain legal issues, who's going to help them? So the unions are stepping up to help self-employed persons in a broader way.
Yeah.
Cheryl, you had some views on this. Maybe I ask you, you know, what's your sense? You've been at the employer side of the house, right? But you have a deep understanding of some of these.
And I just wanted to share the experience that I had, whether it was in the States or in other countries, in Europe or something like that. The tripartite agreement in Singapore is something that is hugely unique to Singapore. When we work together as part of unions, governments, and employers, it's definitely something extremely interesting, and it's a cohesive unit moving forward and developing forward. Just a few examples. So the union is also now getting involved and helping companies retrain and reskill their workers. And for even the self-employed people, they're getting allowances,
Yes, that's right.
$10 for every hour they go for every training. So the self-employed person can increase and enhance their capability. So the tripartite arrangement that we have in Singapore is something that is extremely unique. I've seen on the other end of the coin where let's just say it's not as unique, and that is something that we should definitely preserve, and we should celebrate, and we should use it to strengthen our economy.
I'm going to interrupt because we've
Yes.
gotten through one topic.
Yes.
I mean, it is interesting, but it's important to our residents.
Yeah.
But I think we can maybe stop there on jobs. And I'd suggest if we can have, there are other issues, we can maybe deal with it on Facebook. We can have conversations
Yes.
or upload some links. Why don't we move on to the issue of seniors and digitization of seniors, especially? Wan Ling had some views on that. Why don't you sort of open up this issue for us, Wan Ling, and let's see how we can talk about it.
Right. So I think throughout the whole period of COVID, working here in Punggol, one of the things I did was, I think I did close to 100 Zoom sessions. Yes.
I can see you getting
Zoomed out. Zoomed out.
Zoomed out. I even did like Zumba.
Zumba.
Yeah. But you know, one of the things that really made me open my eyes up to the possibilities that seniors can be looking at the online platform, you know, to elevate loneliness, to reach out to people, was actually this Qigong Zoom that I did. And there were like close to, I think, 1,000 people who participated in it. You know, to me, when I looked at the screen with all the different boxes and all that, I was stunned. It was, to me, right, in Chinese, I'll say it's a 壮观. You know, it was an amazing scene that was out there. And this got me thinking. And, you know, I think the amazing thing is the IMDA did think of something. And it's actually the Seniors Go Digital program. And I think it's a very well thought out plan because it's actually all encompassing. I think the first thing that they did was look at accessibility. How would a typical senior resident be able to look at going digital? And they did it in two ways. The first way is, of course, online methods. And the other way is actually making it very localized. So there are a lot of local offices, whether or not it's in the libraries, whether or not it's in the CCs, where seniors are able to reach out to digital ambassadors to kind of teach them how to use
Yes.
digital skills.
Yeah.
I thought that's very important. The second thing, right, was essentially on how they trained, seniors, or in a way to allow seniors to feel comfortable using technology. And I loved it that they broke it up into 3 separate sections. The first one, tier 1, was about communication skills. So WhatsApp. Yes, and I think, of course, within that is also Zoom. I think the whole circuit breaker thing also brought a lot of grandparents onto the Zoom
Yes,
platform.
yes,
Yes.
Well, I depended on that to keep in touch with my grandson. Otherwise, I would not have seen him at all for 3 months.
Exactly. And they talked about how they talked about how COVID was something that actually accelerated the whole entire, digital adoption by close to 5 years. So I think that's one. The second thing I really liked was, I think, with all the safe distancing, with all the, secure entries and all that, as well as government. Government actually now has a lot of stuff online for people, and it is even in, the polls, right?
Yes.
And so I think the second thing that IMDA did really right on this with the whole program was teaching people how to use government resources online. So that is very important, and it's in all 4 languages. And I think the third thing was essentially about teaching people about cybersecurity. And I think this is something that is important for all elderly folks. We talked about scams and all that, and of course there could be a little bit of a fear going online. But with this, I think it's something that can be alleviated. So I think the whole entire program that has come out of this on these 2 portions are really, really, I would say, comprehensive. And then there's also one last part. And the last part is for seniors who are not probably a little bit, from needy families who are unable to really go online. And there's a whole entire program around that as well. We have worked with all the telcos in Singapore in order to provide cheaper access, digital access, phone access, as well as just offering free cell phones. So I think with this, it is something that's very comprehensive. And guess what? One of the places where we are going to be having the offices for people to meet up with the digital ambassadors is actually at the Pasir Ris Library.
I love the library.
Yes. I can't wait. Yes.
Yes, we are waiting for our library in Punggol.
Well,
And
you will get
it's
one.
coming. It's coming. We will have one in our Punggol Town Hub, and I hope we can bring similar programs such as this.
Yes.
But Janelle, you and I met this senior gentleman who very proudly showed us his
Yes, the
Oh,
trace,
yeah.
trace together token.
Yeah, I had not seen one myself. We had talked about it for a long time, but it has been delivered.
Yes,
And the first group of people to receive it is actually our seniors,
that's right.
because they are more vulnerable. We want them to be able to be able to contact trace and so on. So he was wearing it, and it's a small little thing.
Yeah.
And he was very proudly showing
very
it to
proud
me
of it.
That's
and
nice.
showing it to Janelle.
That's right. That's right. Well, I think it demonstrates that that trace together and the fact that he was very proud and a recipient of it, that sense of inclusion. That we're
Yes.
doing it to include the elderly and the seniors in the benefits of our digital nation.
No, and it shows that our seniors are important to us.
That's right.
Because
That's
we
right.
want them to be safe. When
That's
they go.
right.
Yeah.
That's
That's
the key.
That's right.
Mm.
And that digital inclusion, the various things that Wan Ling's spoken about, it's something that we've been working on for some time.
Yes.
And our seniors actually are more than capable of getting involved.
Yes,
You
they're
know?
more than
It's
capable.
a mindset, it's a commitment to it, it's a commitment from everybody else that we will
Exactly.
include
Yeah.
them,
Yes.
and it's a commitment from them that they will actively participate.
Yes.
And then it happens, right?
1,000 people on Zoom. Can you imagine
That's
that?
right.
It's
That's
amazing.
Maybe that's a good way then. I'm just going to move this along a little bit
Okay.
because otherwise
Okay.
we're running out of time,
Yes.
So it's a good way then to think about this issue of youth.
Okay.
And I think we had said that one of the topics we wanted to talk about was this sort of changing mindset around youth, and it links a bit because that changing mindset is about the opportunities to be created in the future, the digital issues,
Mm.
technological issues. I think Cheryl, you put that on the agenda as it was, so I
Yep.
had to arrow you then to you asked, and now you have to answer.
So I think a lot of the conversations that I had with youth, in fact, we have a few Zoom sessions with our youth on what is their concerns and what are their worries as they're heading to the new economy, they started talking about how do I get involved in Industry 4.0? How do I get involved in digitization? What does it mean for me? And especially when no one's hiring. So I think that is one of the concerns, especially for youth, fresh grads from all our Institute of Higher Learning. So whether it's ITEs, polys, or universities, that's something that is worrying some of our fresh grads. So that being said, I just wanted to elaborate a bit more on what Desmond said earlier. So SG United Traineeship Program stands to offer 21,000 jobs or internship opportunities for our youth. That is heavily subsidized by the government, up to 90%. I can safely say, as an employer myself, working in an organization, not many organizations are ready to employ at the moment because they are still uncertain about the future.
Yes.
But SG United Traineeship Program allows the employer to be able to tap on the youth, tap on these fresh graduates, right? And at the same time, these fresh graduates can train up in the next 1 year and understand how it's like to be working in the real world.
Yes.
So this is a fantastic opportunity, and it takes both hands to clap.
Yes.
One, they used to apply and get on this SG United Traineeship Program, and two, the employers to also partake in this program and be involved in it.
Yeah.
So I think moving forward in this space is about us coming together and helping one another out as we go through this COVID environment.
Yeah.
What's your sense? I mean, there's this issue of opportunities for youth in the next few years. I mean, people who are in training at the moment, people who are in their studies, their tertiary studies, they're worried about these opportunities. I mean, in a way, the headline grabbing is people who are in a job and at risk of losing it. But if you have not yet even started your job and you started along a path, will I still have this type of job? What's your sense in COVID-19? Are we coming out of it? Maybe SM, you give us a sense of what you think. Maybe is there going to be enough job creation? And we talked a little bit about this earlier on, but particularly jobs for youth, because there are going to be jobs for all kinds of people. And people who are older maybe have a sense of where they can find the type of opportunity. But if you haven't started working yet, your fears are slightly different.
Yes, quite so.
Yeah. What's your sense?
Well, I think our young people are fortunate compared to young people in many places in the world because we have spent a lot of time designing our education system. And in our education system, we try to make the education relevant and make our young people job ready when they come up. Job ready, world ready when they come up. So they come up with a range of skills, digital skills, communication skills, and in fact, skills to be able to operate in the region and in the world. So almost all our young people in our tertiary institutions, whether it's ITE, poly, universities, they actually have some opportunity not only to have internships, but in fact, all of them have internships, but they have opportunity to have internships abroad in the region. And that's quite critical because they come out world ready. So the job situation will change, but the skill sets that our education system prepares our young people for will enable them to have that flexibility and the sort of sets of values and skills that will prepare them for any kind of job that comes our way. And in the overall environment, I would say that Singapore continues to have key strengths built around trust, connectivity, and knowledge. And that's a very powerful selling point, I think, that EDB uses to convince investors to come to Singapore. Why investors do come to create jobs. But we as Singaporeans, especially the young people, must have that flexibility, the daring to go out and take these jobs, take them out of their comfort zone and go for it. And I think our young people do have that kind of skill and that kind of mentality and mindset.
Education has always been a key part of every manifesto, national manifesto that we've made. It usually occupies a big chunk of our National Day rally. It's on people's minds. 3 generations of Singaporeans have had a sense that education can lift us up and create the future. But increasingly, we seem to be thinking more and more about what we can do about the earlier and earlier parts of education. We've now made very substantive changes to secondary schools, primary schools, and prior to COVID-19, we were in the midst of talking about the changes that we were going with preschools. But I would presume and hope that those would continue. I mean, even despite
Yes.
COVID-19, we have to continue with these very fundamental opportunities that we have to create.
When I was a Minister for Education from 1997 to about 2003, the focus of our transformations in the education system were in the primary and secondary school system. And then we did expansion of the tertiary system, ITEs, polys, universities. In the more recent years, we have continued to improve these. But as Janil said, the two key places that we placed emphasis on are the parts before, which is preschool, and the parts after, which is in-employment training, upskilling for those
Yes.
who are already in the workforce. So these are two important places that we are putting emphasis on in education. So preschool education, we know that we have expanded preschool education quite, tremendously in the last few years, starting from younger ages, creating the National Early Childhood Education Institute to train preschool teachers. We want to make it more accessible and more affordable. So we all know that primary school education is, very affordable, but preschool education can still be, quite expensive for young families. So we want to make preschool education as affordable as primary education. And then there's no country in the world that has developed a comprehensive upskilling system, continuing education system for workers in the workforce. And this is essentially what we're trying to do now. A comprehensive continuing education system. We've started with Skills Future and many other programs, but that's really what we want to achieve as well. So both ends, this is what we're doing.
So that Skills Future, that whole adult learning space, that focus on lifelong learning, and that link back to what we do in the foundations.
Yes.
It really is a national strategic effort that we've been putting in place, and that's going to hopefully see us through in the post-COVID-19 future. So that's something that perhaps prior to coming into politics and now coming into politics, our three new candidates, something that I'm sure you're aware of and you had views on, and maybe something that you want to get involved in going forward. Do you have some comments about that?
Yeah, so maybe I'm going to add on to SM's comment on education post or in employment education. So I think we're fortunate in Singapore to have such a comprehensive in-employment education system, together with the Skills Future and the Skills Future credit. We have $500 in the Skills Future credit already, and as part of the budget this year, we have an additional $500 in Skills Future credit. And on top of that, for workers between the age of 40 to 60, we understand that this is they will need the retraining a bit more. They will need some emphasis on upgrading and upskilling to stay employable. They get an additional $500 of Skills Future credit. So this Skills Future credit then can be used on courses which are also heavily subsidized. So one of the things that we did when we were in the private sector during this circuit breaker moment was, at the parts of the downturn, this was an opportunity for us to reskill and retrain the workers. So send the workers for reskilling and retraining opportunities, send them on digital courses to prepare ourselves for Industry 4.0. And on top of that, as we mentioned earlier, with the tripartite arrangement with NTUC, in addition to getting them upgraded or trained up, we also receive allowances for the retraining for every single hour that they go on the retraining program.
No, indeed.
Yeah.
For me, actually, I feel that I could appreciate the challenges of this segment of population called the sandwich generation, right? They are about my age group, so about my friends in my age group. So between 45 to maybe 55 or 60, thereabout. Because I think that they are, or we are in a sort of a place of a transition. Some of us are going through career transition, also in how we embrace technology. So I think I'm very happy to hear that there are quite a lot of support to be given to this group, whether it's in the Skills Future credit. So the rest of us getting 500, actually for the 40 to 60, they're going to get another $500. So there's additional support. And talk about traineeship, actually for the mid-careerists, there's also a special, they're going to create 4,000 mid-career traineeship program to allow the companies to employ these people at the mid-career level, not just undergraduate.
Yeah.
So I think these are very tangible and important support given to this group. And I must add that hearing what Wan Ling and Shara has talked about in terms of the programs to support our seniors as well as the youth, because my children are like going towards adulthood, right? They're going to the job market soon. So I think it will really help the sandwich generation as well, because we know that the parents are taken care of by the community and society and partners, and the children's job are also in a way taken care of. So that's going to be a huge relief for this group of people in our community as well.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point. I just want to bring in together with changing mindset and for the mid-career professionals. One thing that has been very useful is also the professional conversion program. So when we talk about the changing landscape and the changing mindset, Industry 4.0 and digitization has changed the world we live in. Some industries will grow, some industries will contract. But most important, and some jobs may be lost. But most importantly is how do we rebalance and how do we move in between the different industries so everyone remains employed.
Yeah.
And that's where the professional conversion program, where there's subsidies for someone working in an industry to swap to another industry that will allow our workers, our fellow Singaporeans to remain employable and to retain his job.
And you know what? I could give you a real life example. So I run a caregiving platform where we work a lot with freelancers. And I would say maybe about 20% of the 12,000 freelancers we work with are actually professionals who joined us, switch careers through training. And this is all through looking at all the industry transformation maps and all that we planned out. And one of it was actually in healthcare. So I do think that industry is actually benefiting a lot from this.
And they benefited from the PCP as well.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, I'm going to exercise my my duty again. We're at 42 minutes. I think we've had a lot of things. We have at least a couple more topics we must address.
Yes,
and then hopefully take it. Thank you. Yes.
Keep us on there.
So let me just change tack a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Because one of the things we really want to talk about were our plans for Pasir Ris, our plans for Punggol, and no doubt that's what a lot of the residents have been asking about. Certainly, the things that we're planning for and we need to look forward to. So maybe we can also, I think, SM at this point think about how we are going to look after the two towns. So that was one of the comments that was
I've been
there.
asked that as well.
Yeah. So I think those are key things we really must cover. So
Yes.
maybe I'll open up with you.
Two comments. First, how we're going to organize ourselves. So we have 5 of us in the GRC. Currently, we have, in the previous term of office for the Parliament, we had 2 MPs serving in Pasir Ris. Mr. Zainal Sapari, I owe him a great deal of thanks for looking after our residents.
Can I just say, Zainal Sapari, thank you very much, brother, if you're out there. And I hope you've logged on, because why are you not watching our Facebook page today? Okay? But if you have, thank you very much, brother. Very much appreciated. Sorry, SFJ.
Sorry.
So what's happened now is the Pasir Ris population has grown. So what I intend to do is to have 3 of us look after Pasir Ris. Sharil, who grew up here in Pasir Ris, Desmond, who will join us in Pasir Ris, and myself. So 3 of us will look after our residents in Pasir Ris. And then what I will have is Wan Ling to join Janil in Punggol together with our colleague Sun Chueling, who is in Punggol West. So we'll have 3 MPs looking after Punggol, and 3 of us will look after Pasir Ris. So I think that's we'll be able to look after our residents better in that way. And for Punggol specifically, we would want to work very closely together with Chueling in Punggol West to make sure that we run one whole town council well. We don't want to have bits and pieces of it separated, and then the sort of boundary issues and so forth, and make sure that the town council, especially for Punggol West, is well managed, financially responsible, and so on, so that we look after the residents there as well as one town council, and that Punggol town can be developed to its full potential. There are many more facilities that Punggol town needs, and we want to develop Punggol town in an integrated way. Now, Pasir Ris is different, because Pasir Ris is a maturing town. It's 25 to 30 years, and it is due for rejuvenation. And it's rejuvenation at several levels. So we have rejuvenation at the town level, where we have new facilities, and we have rejuvenation at the neighborhood level, and even at the individual flat level, neighborhood level with the neighborhood renewal program, and the individual flat level with the home improvement program that will come within the next few years as our flats reach about 30 years old. So these are the plans that we have.
Excellent. So we need to then perhaps maybe go through some of these plans with the perhaps some explanation of what specifically we're going to do. Maybe perhaps and also that would also give us a sense of what we need to then start communicating out to our residents. We've put together this local manifesto. It's available online. We're delivering it to people's homes as well. But perhaps we can extract a few pieces from our local manifesto and explain some of the things that we're doing for both Pasir Ris and Punggol. So I'm going to maybe jump in and now shift attention to Punggol, because SM's already talked a little bit about Pasir Ris, and we want to also make sure that our Punggol plans are highlighted. And I'll ask Wan Ling to perhaps talk about some of the things that she picked up from our manifesto, which are particularly relevant and interesting to our residents. And maybe talk us through some of those things, Wan. What jumps out at you? What are our residents asking about? And maybe we can explain some of those things.
Well, actually, one thing that I really liked about Punggol Town development was that there was actually something both for the young as well as for our seniors. For the young, one of the things that we are going to have is actually our Punggol Digital District, or the PDD. Right? And within this itself, what was really cool about this is that it's going to be creating 28,000 more jobs in the area of ICT. Beyond this itself, we're also going to have our first university in Punggol. Yes. And that's the Singapore Institute of Technology.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is a rather interesting concept that we're going to be planning to have with the SIT. It's going to be together with a business hub. It's going to be with a business park, and that's the JTC Business Park.
Yes.
And with this, you will be able to see how people will be able to translate whatever they learn in a university with real life, with companies and all that within the business park itself. So I do think that's going to be a lot of interesting and great employment opportunities there.
And for our residents, that's on page 22 and 23 of the manifesto that we've been sending to you.
That's right. So maybe we can ask the team to pull up a visual of pages 22 and 23, and then we can show our residents what the manifesto looks like. But if you're not sure, as I say, it'll be brought to your doorstep, or may already be at your doorstep, and you can. Well, that's the Punggol Town Hub. Not quite the picture. That was 21. Next page.
Next page.
That's the next bit we are. So we can. Well, we're bringing it to your doorstep. It's available online as well. And it has quite a lot of nice graphics. But maybe the other one that I could ask our team to bring up is one of the maps.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps the map of Punggol gives you a nice sense of where we're going. And then maybe after that, we pivot to the map of Pasir Ris, and then SM Cho can talk a little bit about that. But if you look at the map of Punggol, and I've got it here on my copy of the manifesto, you'll see in the middle we've got around Punggol, junction of Punggol Central, with the line of the MRT station. We've got a few plots that are going to be developed, and what's going to happen is we will have the town hub just across the road from Safra, as well as the stadium next to it. And then just to the north of that, you're going to have Singapore Institute of Technology. And so that there's going to be a spine of development from Punggol MRT all the way up north through the Punggol Digital District, and then ending at Punggol Coast MRT. And that's going to have...
And that's a new MRT station.
That's a new MRT station in Punggol, an extension of the Northeast Line. So that's going to be quite an exciting space. There'll be a hawker center, a library, many new facilities, as well as jobs. So that's the bit about the manifesto that I find very exciting. And that's going to be accessible to actually the whole of Singapore because of the MRT connectivity. And the MRT that we're building, the Cross Island Line, will also connect us up to Pasir Ris.
Yes.
So we hope that the residents of Pasir Ris will come to Punggol and spend some time visiting us.
Yeah.
We have lots of facilities there.
And the other way around.
We'll get to that in a minute. I just want to make a plug that we have lots of good food in Punggol as well, and some good crab. So on that note, if they got onto the train and went in the other direction to Pasir Ris, what would we have to look forward to, Rob?
we have these maps also on page 14 and 15 of Pasir Ris. Actually, I love these maps because our teams which were preparing the manifesto went to some great lengths to put these maps together and to put together for you as much information as we could in a legible form and a digestible form. And I'd really like to thank Syed Ahmed and the team
Yes.
for having done a tremendous
Thank
job.
you.
with this.
Thank you, Mr. Syed Ahmed. Well done.
Yes. So I really appreciate that a great deal. So for Pasir Ris, the key development is actually the town hub. The town hub, and that's on pages 16, 18 and 19.
Yeah, 18 and 19.
And so we will have an integrated town hub. Well, you know, our MRT station has a certain, how shall I say, rustic feel about it. Kampong style, original MRT station. So we want it to be upgraded. And so we will have a new upgraded town hub. So it will be a little bit like the Bedok town hub with MRT station integrated there with air-conditioned bus interchange below and podium with shops and then residents on top. But one of the key new facilities in the Punggol Town Hub will be a new underground station for the Cross Island Line. And this will be one of two stations on the Cross Island Line, the main Cross Island Line in Pasir Ris. There'll be another station near Neighbourhood 4, and that will take us from Jurong through Neighbourhood 4 to Pasir Ris MRT station down all the way to Jurong eventually. And in between Punggol and Pasir Ris, as Janil said, we will have a total of 4 MRT stations on the spur line of the Cross Island Line. Pasir Ris Central Station, Pasir Ris Station, Pasir Ris Elias Station, Punggol Riviera Station, and Punggol Central Station. So this will connect the two towns and bring families in both places closer together. So these are very exciting developments for Pasir Ris, and it's a rejuvenation of the whole town center. And I'm looking forward to that.
No, excellent. I'm excited, and I think it's going to be very exciting for our residents as well. Maybe I could turn to Desmond and Cheryl, who have been engaging very actively with the residents as well as the merchants and shop owners in Pasir Ris and walking the ground. Now you have the manifesto in front of you. What are you excited by, and what do you want to get out there and engage with?
Maybe if I can begin and answer that question from as a past resident of Pasir Ris and also staying in the area.
Yeah.
Past and current, right?
Current,
Past, current, yeah.
Just at the fringes at the moment, yeah. So to see the rejuvenation of the Pasir Ris town center is extremely exciting to see what is being planned for that, including the new integrated hub and then the new BTOs with the 1.2 meter long central walkway linkway that will link the bus station to also the Pasir Ris beach. As an avid user of Pasir Ris Park, I visit Pasir Ris Park almost every other day, either jogging or cycling. To have it all linked up is going to be exciting. It's a combination of the urbanization and the whole fauna and flora. You know, our Pasir Ris Park, we have a lot of our greeneries and also our exciting friends like otters and colorful chickens and
So fun, Bill.
Yeah, I saw
Yeah.
salamanders.
Mangrove swamp, mud skipper.
exactly. Where else in Singapore can you find all this? And to have it integrated with the transportation hub and the new housing assets is definitely extremely exciting. So in the conversations that I've been having with residents, so I myself can't control my excitement. I want this up and running, including the MRT line to Punggol. So the residents are all equally excited and all can't wait to have it developed.
Excellent. I know. What about you, Desmond?
Yeah, for me, actually, the integrated transport hub and just quite next to it, the town plaza is something that I feel that will be really helpful to all of us, the residents here, because actually one of the comments I do get is that they really appreciate, and residents here do appreciate that it is not just urban development here, right? We have a lot of greenery and they want to keep it that way. So a good balance between urban development and greenery and water is very important for the feel and the atmosphere that we have now in Pasir Ris. So I would say that the town plaza also has a heritage garden, as I see in this page here. And it's not just about building more buildings and glass and windows and so on, but it's also making sure that there is a feel of a home, greeneries around the development. And of course, with the park connectors and the park, I think that we will have a good balance between development and greenery in Pasir Ris.
No, excellent.
But could I say that, this is not development for development's sake.
Yeah,
Yes.
And it's also development which is sensitive to the environment and the greenery. So why do I say that? I mean, among the key developments that we will have in the new town hub is a new polyclinic. The polyclinic in Pasir Ris has served us well, but as we have more seniors, as we have a larger population in Pasir Ris, we do want a polyclinic which is more modern, more spacious, and can serve our residents better. So that will be in the town hub. The other thing is that we have BTOs. I know that we have plenty of BTOs, and we welcome many new residents into Punggol. We're very happy to have our new residents in Punggol, but we keep being asked, the residents in Pasir Ris, they keep on saying, can I get a BTO in Pasir Ris because my son is growing up, or young people come and say, I want to live close to my father, mother, so that they can help look after their grandchildren, when they live in three-tier families, and where are the BTOs? So we're going to have new BTO developments in Pasir Ris. I think we'll never have as many as we would like, but at least we have more opportunities for young people, second generation Pasir Ris residents, to get a chance to have a BTO flat in Pasir Ris. Now, these will be built along Drive 3 on land which has already and always been designated for housing. So there's a strip that's just adjacent to Drive 3, which will be developed. The rest of the land is actually reserved for parks, and that will remain. But that strip that's just next to Drive 3 will be developed for the BTOs. And we've gone through a round of discussions with the residents and also with HDB and architects, and they will try and develop this BTO project in a way which is sensitive to the environment, so that there will be green vistas through the buildings, there will be green verges along Drive 3, and it will be quite a pleasant environment for those living there, housing by the park, but also to the present residents, that it will respect their the present residents' desire to have that greenery and that sense of space still in Pasir Ris.
No, Esen, that's a very useful point, and I'm going to use that to start to move towards wrapping it up because because we've been going nearly an hour, 58 minutes. We were targeting 30 to 40 minutes, so we've exceeded our time. But some of the questions that we haven't answered that have come up on our Facebook feed have been about our greenery, and the preservation of the natural spaces. And the example that you cited is building on work that various of our government agencies, URA and HDB, and we've seen this play out in Punggol, how they've integrated developments into the natural scenery around them, whether it's the waterway, the coastal regions, the greenery in the parks, and also tried to drive the use of technology around sustainability, water reclamation, waste management, the use of solar power. And of course, in Punggol Digital District, SIT is studying many of these technologies and will try to experiment further about how we can take the sustainability agenda forward. I know there have been lots of questions about that on our Facebook page. I'm sorry we haven't had time to get into all the details of that. Perhaps we now need to start organizing a second session like this, and perhaps those are some of the topics we can talk about, whether it's within the campaign or at a later stage. These are important issues. Another important issue that I've seen many of the comments address is climate change. And the reality is that climate change has always been something that we felt very seriously about, increasingly so over the last year. And PM has talked about this at our National Day rally. SM, you've been directly involved in many of the climate change studies and mitigation efforts that we've got going. Again, I think it's a huge subject. It's close to my heart as well as many Singaporeans, and I'm sure all of our team. Perhaps, again, something that we have to take up at a later stage. Personally, I think perhaps it's something that we have to go into some depth, and it's not the kind of thing you can go into depth in a sort of rally in the midst of lots of questions coming up. We really want to get into the nitty-gritty details, and it is an important topic. So to those of you who have actually sat with us for the last hour and continued watching and added your comments. I'm very sorry we can't cover all the ground, but we do agree that these are important issues. Absolutely. Let me say out there, the comments and questions that you've brought up are important to us, and we will find the time and the space to engage with that. So perhaps I let all of my colleagues, my comrades have a last pitch, a last comment. We'll end with SM Teo, and then we'll call it a day there. So I'm going to go with Sharil first, then Desmond, then Wan Ling. I'll say a few words, and then perhaps SM, you can close out for us. So maybe give Sharil your last 30 seconds worth of commentary.
So for me, I guess I'm extremely excited to work with the residents of Pasir Ris, Punggol, to build Pasir Ris, Punggol to be the best home for families to live in.
Excellent, Sharil. Thank you. That really was 30 seconds, very, very sharp and short. So we're going to have Desmond next. Go for it, Desmond.
I'm going to spend a lot of time trying to get to know the residents. I'm not a Pasir Ris boy like Sharil, right? But I'm determined to get to know the residents. I'm going to listen well. I'm going to learn fast. I'm going to work hard. Thank you.
Wow, that was also very short and sharp. Listen hard and
listen well, learn fast, and work hard.
Listen well, learn fast, work hard. I think we have to have a T-shirt with that, right? That's like, your other slogan was what? House by house, block by block, resident by resident. I think I can see where you're going. You're starting to come up with a certain trend like this. Okay, excellent. So now, Wan Ling, what about you?
I'm somebody who's very energetic. I will hit the ground really hard. I want to listen to all your stories, and I want to support you through this.
Wow, okay, excellent. Well, another short, punchy line. So for me, I'm Janal Puducherry. Thank you very much for tuning in today, or I was just tuning in and showing my grew up with television, for logging on today and sitting with us as we've had this webinar. It won't be the last time we do this, and it won't be the last time we tackle these very, very important subjects. We know this is close to your heart, the residents of Pasir Ris, Punggol, GRC. And this team will work for you. And together with you, we'll build better homes in Pasir Ris and Punggol for you and your families. I'm going to leave it to SM Teo Chee Hen to close out this evening's session. And thank you very much for staying with us throughout this last 1 hour. SM Teo, please.
Yes. Well, dear residents, thank you very much for joining us. I'm really very excited to work with this team. We had a very good team in the last GRC, and we'll continue to work with our team here and together with Ms. Sun Chue Ling in Punggol West to deliver the best possible homes for you in Pasir Ris, Punggol. Now, this is a new experience for me because I've never done a rally in my 7 general elections in this way before. So it's unconventional, but I would like to do something a little bit more conventional to end the rally. And what we usually do at the end of the rally, when we finish, is we all join hands and we take a bow. So now we're not even allowed to join hands, right? We cannot hold hands. So I would like to ask my teammates and myself to just take a bow to the audience.
Okay. SM, just before that, we'll do it on a count of 3, but before that, can I just give a great big thanks to all our team that's sitting behind the cameras and behind Thank you very much for putting this together. Really appreciated it. And so then I think now we really have to end.
Of course. Thank you very much to all our residents for having joined us today. We hope that we can have your trust and support. Please vote for us so that we can work with you. Ready, team?
Yep.
1, 2, 3. Let's take a bow. Thank you.